Good afternoon to our audience and to our speakers. A very, very warm welcome to the closing session of the 2021 edition of GreenWeek. My name is Katrina Sickle, and I have the privilege of navigating us all through this last 90 minutes so that we go out with a bang. And in fact, we've got a packed programme, so please do stay with us right until the very end. I promise you, you won't regret it. Now, during the whole of this week, we've had so many different discussions among diverse and brilliant speakers on the topic on the table, the European Commission's action plan for zero pollution. And I hope that all of those speakers and moderators and you have managed to see that indisputable link between reducing pollution and protecting biodiversity, people and planet. Now, in this last session, we're going to do a kind of a celebration. We're going to celebrate the launch of the Zero Pollution Stakeholder Platform. Now, this platform enables all of the actors concerned to be able to exchange ideas and best practice well beyond GreenWeek. And it is actually the baby of the European Commission and the Committee of the Regions. So I have the privilege of having a little bit of a tête-à-tête about that with representatives from both in just a moment. A reminder, ladies and gentlemen, because we are so jam-packed, we won't take any questions on Slido, but if you tweet something brilliant, we will try and cram it in at the end, and we will certainly, definitively this time, show some top tweets that come in today in this last session and also throughout the week. Hashtag EU GreenWeek 2021. So that's it from me. I'm going to turn now to you, to the Director General of DG Environment. Welcome to Florica Fink-Hoyer, and I'm going to give you the privilege. It's for you to recap a few of the highlights of the week. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. And indeed, welcome to this last session of already a full week. And it was all under the motto, Zero Pollution for Healthier People and Planet. And I hope you find it not only inspiring, but also motivating to engage yourself in that fight against pollution. Now, often we measure success by numbers, and I do have a lot of numbers as well, because you asked me on some takeaways. And in fact, we had over 5,300 participants registered for 45 thematic and 15 networking sessions. That's quite a lot for a week, but actually was not a full week. So 45 thematic and 50 networking sessions, but we also partnered up with external partners, and they reached an amazing 80,000 people in 44 countries through 600 partners events. And I think that's quite impressive. You mentioned the top tweets, so we also always look at the social media, and judging from the activities on the social media, and on Twitter only, we had more than 7,000 people using the hashtag EU GreenWeek. And please, you can still use it, hashtag EU GreenWeek. And we reached in total more than 30 million accounts. I think that's also quite impressive. And that's the multiplying effect we wanted to have. So a big thank you and also congratulations to already everybody involved. And that means in such an event, which is a virtual hybrid event, also a big thank you to the many technicians and all their colleagues behind the scenes, because we often forget that. If it goes flawless, this is because of them. Also, we had interpreters, so I would like to thank them as well. And I would like to thank Katrina already. I mean, it's not over yet, but I use the occasion to thank because it's often forgotten. And I would like to thank also my team in DG Environment, because almost everybody was involved by writing script, being a panelist and so on. And now, of course, I will forget, but I would like to at least highlight a few names. Natasha, the whole communication team around Laure and Gilles, and obviously Joachim and Veronica, and all their teams behind, and basically all my colleagues. Now, you asked me also on Tom some takeaways, and I think some messages were more important than others in the sense that we all understood there is a direct nexus between a healthy environment and healthy people. I think that is clear, but it was exacerbated by all the panels, because reducing environmental pollution is to the benefit of our own health. I think another clear intrinsic link was between If we want to address climate change, if we want to go down on or fight against biodiversity loss, we also have to address pollution. So climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, they're all together if we want to achieve progress. And that is important because we will have two big summits at the end of the year on climate change, but also on biodiversity. So this is very important to set the stage, but also bring the message that we need ambitious targets to reach. Now, another good topic that came out all the time is about sustainable consumption and sustainable production. I think we had many sessions on that. Of course, more fancy ones like the Bauhaus one, the Lighthouse, but also on industry, how we can go circular, how to reduce plastics, how we can go really and reduce our EU footprint, because we might be now trying to be part of the solution, but we are certainly also part of the problem with our consumption. So sustainable production, consumption, key issues if we want to address pollution. And I think we had also some dynamic sessions in the beginning, in particular with the chef, the artist, the footballers, the sports. I think the good thing is everybody has a community, everybody has followers, and we all need to mobilize all of them. So that's, I think, also something to take away. And we had, of course, the hackathon, one of the biggest issues, I think, for us to get the young people involved, to get their new ideas. Now, it's not over, as I said, and I think now we want to look at the last session, which is under the motto, Together Towards Zero Pollution and Becoming the Change We Need.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your enthusiasm there. And I think what I would say is you're absolutely right in terms of everybody having their community and the multiplier effect. And talking of community, ladies and gentlemen at home, that's what we're going to stay with now. We're going to sort of celebrate the launch of this Zero Pollution Stakeholder Platform that I mentioned. It is very much the Commission and the Committee of the Region's baby. So, Florica, I'm going to engage you in a chat, but there we go. We are going to welcome the Vice President, the first Vice President of the Committee of the Regions, Mr. Vasco Cordero. He is joining us online. I can see him there. Now I can see him straight in front of me. Thank you so much. So lovely to have you with us. It is a joint baby. It's both. So I'm going to turn to the Committee of the Regions first and just hear a bit of their input, because it's important, I think, to reiterate for the benefit of the audience that the Committee of the Regions is and has been very active in the European Green Deal, everything to move towards the target point final. Now we have this Zero Pollution Action Plan. I need to know from your perspective, why is it so important to the Committee of the Regions?
Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the invitation. I'm speaking to you from the Azores, group of islands in the middle of the Atlantic. And Katrina, in a few words, I think the importance of gathering the Committee of the Regions in this endeavor is very clear when you have the notion that local and regional governments across Europe are responsible for delivering about 70% of EU policy. Also 70% of climate mitigation measures and around 90% of climate adaptation measures. So this is one of the policies and one of the challenges where local and regional authorities are decisive to make it work, to deliver. Absolutely. So this is one of the reasons why we consider that the success of this endeavor depends very clear in local and regional leadership. Well, the second reason why it is so important to us and to everybody is because it helps to save lives. More than half of the world population is settled in new urban areas. Yep. And they consume the vast majority of energy and create approximately 70% of all emissions. So this approach, where local and regional authorities and the Committee of the Regions have this task, this role, is a question of make it happen, to deliver the goals of this endeavor.
Okay, and just let me stay with you just a moment. I think what's important is when we talk cities and regions, we heard the Director General there talk about this nexus. It's all about human health, animal health, plant health, protecting biodiversity. I've got to be honest, when I first hear about zero pollution as the average Joe, I think air, and sometimes I think plastic. But I don't think more widely. This week has obviously really reinforced that. So why pollution in that plethora, when we explain it much more widely as we've put it under the microscope this week, why is it so important for cities and regions, this particular action? Is there any just one or two sentences that you wish to add there?
Well, first, it's about our future. It's about having sustainability in future development. Secondly, this is the moment. The COVID-19 pandemic creates not only a lot of challenges, but also an opportunity. And the economic recovery that comes with the pandemic is an opportunity to balance these two options. It's not a question of having the economic recovery or the greener recovery. It must be mixed. And cities and regions are committed to make it work, balancing the green recovery and economic recovery.
Yeah, the two going hand in hand, which I think is something that's very much understood and is filtering much more rapidly now. I think it was more in the Brussels bubble a few years ago, but certainly now, you know, getting a wider foothold. Hold that thought, if I may ask you for a moment, so I can come here to Florica. Let's get into the details, because the action plan is stuffed with actions that reflect a lot of different policies, lots of different actors, lots of different economic areas and sectors. So just tell us a little bit more. What's the platform and who is it for?
First of all, hello to the first Vice President. I'm super happy to say that we are very glad, actually as institutions, to work together and to partner up, because that also sets a signal. And when you say, what is it about? It is because where do our citizens experience really, bad air, bad soil, waste problems, pollution problems? It's in the cities and in the regions, and therefore it's very natural that we would team up with the Committee of the Region, because that's where we reach the multipliers, but also the people who will work on, for instance, spatial planning. And on transport solutions. We had in the very beginning, Lati, the mayor of Lati. This is where change can happen at the regional and local level. And that's why it is a rather natural way to team up. But it is about bringing really experts from very different walks of life, also science, researchers, but as I said, city planners together, and to work in a multidisciplinary manner. And then I have to say, we also want to, of course, mainstream then the knowledge, the expertise, want to have an exchange of good practices and all among these different actors from different regions, be it north, south, west, east of the Union, because some have already advanced ideas and others less. But also we will team up with existing stakeholder platforms, because we have one on circular economy, which is quite active. And of course, here we can bring business and regional, local level together. And we also will do this with a platform for climate. And that is a logic thing. I think the idea is to exchange best practice, work on and identifying operational solutions, put it into practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And there is so much about that: implementation, urgency. Implementation, urgency. We've heard it throughout the week. So if I might turn back to you, please, Mr. Cordero. I said it's a shared baby, but actually, as I understand it, the Committee of the Regions is taking the lead. So the important thing, I think, for people to understand is what specifically do you bring to the table with this platform?
Well, we can start by the idea that Florica has just expressed. The idea of having these goals that were established at European level translated to local environments, to regional environments. This is the first one. Second, we are in much better position to assess the effectiveness of measures and the fulfillment of goals because we are closer to the realities we want to change, to the realities where we want to intervene. We can help share best practices among regions and cities across the world. And I think we are also, local and regional authorities, a very powerful tool to bring all these concerns and all this approach to the mainstream debate in our communities.
Thank you. And you there, Florica, you said implementation. Here we heard, and I think it's important to reinforce that also, monitoring, evaluation. This is what we heard there from Vasco. You know, that we need to be continually doing that. Any other couple of things you haven't had the opportunity to say in terms of why the Commission particularly is creating this platform with the Committee of the Regions, the city and regional level?
I think one aspect which we have not addressed is it's not so easy to tackle pollution just with one element. It's quite a multidisciplinary approach that you have to look at. Because if I, as a city, say, I go, for instance, on a smarter, greener mobility, you also have to look at what implications this had on other effects on the city. So you have to go on a holistic approach. Mobility, you know, air quality, of course, comes to mind, but also the buildings, energy consumption, but also green spaces. Is there space for that? Or is there space for, I don't know, a metro line, which is also needed because you want to get people away from, you know, individual cars, but rather into public transport. So it is something which can best be tackled and addressed by those who live and plan the work and the life in a city. And that's this multidisciplinary approach I was saying. And that's why we want to have the experts around. And I think we are talking a lot of cities, but Committee of the Region is, of course, also the regions as such. Because think about also cross-border cooperation. You know, even in public transport, things like that. There's so many possibilities that you can identify, but you need to have the knowledge and you need to have a way where you exchange that and you reflect and you plan together. And that's why it is a natural choice, the Committee of the Region.
I think it's a very important point you make about the planning together, and also because we heard the different actors from urban planners to municipalities to NGOs. Everybody needs to have a voice. I think sometimes what gets forgotten, because we live in quite a polarized world, black and white, that there are trade-offs. You gave a very good example. If you want trade-offs, in as much as you've just got to, I suppose what I'm saying, the repercussions is what I meant. You find the absolute top best solution. If you do something, how does it impact something else, and how do you mitigate that to make sure that you haven't made a decision that actually creates a worse problem, is what I meant by trade-offs there. But let me just ask expectations, if I may, to to Vasco Cordeiro. 3 expectations, just only, if I may. I'm sure you have many for the platform. And 3, if you can say to some of those stakeholders listening at home, this is what we would like from you.
Well, first of all, I think there is this very, very clear need that this is not public authorities, just public authorities endeavor. We need everybody. We need citizens. We need small and medium enterprise. We need business. We need social movements, research institutions. So the idea of having everybody mobilized to address these challenges is one of the key ideas that I think everybody around this issue should be aware. Secondly, the need to be open and inclusive, the need to work with our members, regional offices, European networks, and national associations. And we need to explore the synergies. And I think Florica already mentioned that We need to explore the possibilities between what are programs, actions, measures established at local and regional level, and how we can connect them with the goals. So this is very important. Why? Because this is one of the opportunities to fulfill one of the main goals of the European Union. The idea of territorial cohesion also is very clear stated in these objectives, in this action plan. Because as Florica said, it's not possible to have a specific approach to consider that if you have measures in one city, that's all. No, you have to have a broader challenge, and not only about the subjects of this process, but also about the policies. It's not only about air, it's not only about soil or water. There is the need to make this objectives, the action plan, its goals as a framework to planning and implementing measures at local and regional level in all the areas of competences of local and regional authorities.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Florica now with a similar question. And what I do, when I asked her about expectations, yesterday I had the privilege of moderating in the morning on equality and sustainability. We unpacked environmental racism, big words, but we really did unpack it well. So with that in the background, and given you have this platform to bring all actors together for better policy, how do we ensure, what are your expectations that all those actors come around the table, even ones that maybe might have less access normally to be able to shape policy? And can you also tell us a little bit about the next steps? So what are you hoping for, and how can all stakeholders really get involved?
I'm actually quite happy that you mention equality. It's not only about equality, it's also about the hidden bias, it's also about the issue of access for everybody. Don't forget, when we talk about the Green Deal and the green recovery, we also talk often about having to ensure that it is a fair and a just recovery. And if you go to cities, this becomes quite evident. And I think Vasco already alluded to the fallout of the COVID crisis. People will have lost their jobs. So now we will have to make sure that they see that going in sustainable economies, it creates jobs, high-level and low-skilled jobs. So this can be amplified, again, with best practice. I also have to say that it is not that, and Vasco said it very well, that we now have to steer everything. A lot is happening already at the local and regional level, and everybody can start. It's not just like because of that stakeholder platform, something else happens. It's just a framework. But in the stakeholder platform, we will definitely make sure that there is a balanced representation, as we, by the way, also did for the circular economy platform, or for the chemical, the round table now we had also on chemicals, just to make sure that we get researchers, but also the industry, but also the NGOs, but also the people who really matter in that whole environment, back into on the table, basically. I'm a strong believer in, if you have a seat on the table, you can at least influence the decision. And that, again, this is where you have also elected mayors, elected representatives in the committee of the region who can make that voice of their citizen heard. Now, you asked me about the practical steps. We will set up a website, and that comes after summer, I'm afraid. We are still working on it. So we will make a website, so then a bit more clarity on the structures and all of this. But as I said, cities, regional level can already engage, also have cross-fertilization with a lot of other elements that we are doing. Life program, I'm just saying it because life program is very close to the citizen as well. And then we will, we actually aim at our first meeting end of the year.
Okay.
But it is a process, so it's not like we wait on end of the year, but that will then take stock of what we are moving and what we have achieved.
Thank you, and I think it's important for people to hear that the platform is part of a journey. You will move towards further discussions to see what is happening, to another conference, but at the moment get the website there, get people, orchestrate some conversations. As you rightly say, there is an awful lot of conversations and action already going on at the moment. Well, I've got my eye on the clock, so I have to close this very productive conversation. I will close with one last word for you, Vasco, which I'm going to spring on you. If you had to describe in 1 year, if you said, you know, this platform and its output as an animal, what would it be?
An animal?
Yeah, would it be a snake because it's lithe? Would it be a panther because it's fast? What would you, an animal or an object, how would you describe that platform?
An eagle.
An eagle?
Overseeing several environments, several aspects, but having an overview of based on the idea of the greener future for everybody. So that was how I would describe it. An eagle. I think it's a good animal, right? It
is. It's a good, but you are good.
Yeah.
Because I sprang that on you and you just went, oh, cripes, why did she ask me that? Okay, with your blessing, I'm going to close this conversation so that I can segue into meeting some more fabulous speakers. Thank you so much, Florica Finkhoyer, and thank you so much to you, Vasco Cordero. You've both been fabulous in, I think, projecting the necessary enthusiasm for this platform. So I hope it does make people think, yep, I want to be a part of that. Florica, you can leave in just a moment. I'm going to give you a chance, but you are coming back to give some nice bit of news about holidays at the end, are you not?
I do.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move into literally the very last panel of Green Week. We've got a handful of fabulous speakers who are going to join us, 4 of them joining us remotely, 1 joining in the studio. So I think I'm going to say hello because they're there. I can see them on the big screen. They're all there waiting, which is delightful. With us remotely, we have the Deputy Director General of Business Europe. He is called Alexandre Affre. We also have from the European Council of Young Farmers, Samuel Masse. We also have the Director General of BUC, which is great, the European Consumer Organisation, critical to have that voice, Monique Goyens. And we also have the President of Housing Europe, the European Federation of Public, Cooperative and Social Housing, and his name is Bent Madsen. Hello. And thank you. We have some good branding in the back of your shot. And I'm so pleased I won't be alone because I am joined in the studio by the Secretary General of the European Environmental Bureau. And his name is Jeremy Waits. And hopefully he is going to be shown in a very socially distanced, appropriate way to his seat. There he is. So nice, a bit of movement on set. It's lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know, you see, you're not alone. You have me here. Excellent. So that's already good, right? So, ladies and gentlemen who are joining remotely, and to Jeremy, who is here from the EEB, you know the drill. You've seen it. I've terrorised you all into being brief. So I've got a few questions for you, the same one for all of you to start with. Now, because you're here, actually, Jeremy, on your own, why don't I start with you? I think that's fair. Just 1 or 2 minute answer, the obvious one. Here we are, European Green Deal. We have the Zero Pollution Action Plan. It's critical on pollution and beyond. So if you had to sort of really just say in a few sentences how you think that action plan can help within that bigger context, what would you say?
Well, thank you, Katrina. It's great to be here. Let me start by saying you've invited us to come here in a spirit of celebration, and I think we have an awful lot to celebrate. We have a European Commission that's put the Green Deal right at its heart, the heart of its programme, and it's recognised the zero pollution ambition within that European Green Deal. So this is very positive. And now we have, since last month, the Zero Pollution Action Plan communication. We very much like the vision, the narrative, the principles in that action plan, but celebration can't become complacency, and we do have some concerns about some shortcomings in the action plan, which I think it's important to mention here. Firstly, many of the actions are actually actions that were already committed to in other instruments, so they've been brought together as a kind of compilation, which is useful, but it means that the A in ZPAP is a little bit of a lowercase in our view. Secondly, the ambition in some of the elements doesn't go as far as it should to be really called zero pollution ambition. Just take the example of air pollution. We don't think that closely aligning with the WHO guidelines, for example, on air pollution is really entitling the EU to claim a title of global leadership, when here we're talking about the global agency that has science-based approaches to assessing what the guidelines should be, and the EU is only sort of talking about closely aligning.
Okay. The last one.
Yeah, and then thirdly and finally, that we find some quite important elements are missing. There are some missed opportunities in relation to noise, in relation to soil, for example.
Okay. Okay. Well, as I had somebody on a panel with me yesterday, the day before yesterday, on safe and sustainable by design, and then I did another on alternative fuels, actually, with a gentleman from the Commission from DG Energy, and he said, Katrina, if we ever put anything out that doesn't have people saying yes, no, oh, not pleased with that, oh, that could be better, he said, I'd be very surprised. And that is your place to absolutely say, as you said at the start, good stuff, but this is where we think, we need to see a little bit more, some discrepancies on ambition you talked about, and certain other areas such as soil. So I'm being Mrs. Short today. I'm going to come to our other lovely people on the panel. Why don't I come to Monique? Let me hear from you, if I may. Just, you know, very, very briefly, that action plan. What do you really welcome? How can it help? Sure, if you think, I just want to flag this up, I'd like to see more of that. But if we can have a kind of a sandwich, this works, this perhaps less so, that would be very helpful for us. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be part of this discussion. Just one thing I saw next to you on the screen, it's for healthier people. What is important from the consumer perspective is that it's with healthier people, and that at the end of the day, it's the people who are going to change their lifestyles and who will make it happen. And that's why we welcome very much in the action plan the fact that one of the cornerstones is the precautionary principle. And we believe that prevention is certainly a better investment than relying on ex post cure. What is very important for us now, and that's the message really that I would like to hammer, is that we have seen a lot of strategies being adopted by this Commission, and this action plan is another one. Very ambitious, very welcome. What we see now is that this level of ambition needs to remain during the whole policy process, during the whole journey, because we see some of the previous strategies being rolled out with lowered ambition. It is key, if you want to deliver a zero pollution action plan on the ground for the people, that the level that you talk the walk, or that you walk the talk, rather. I always confuse them. You know what I mean?
We got you.
You need to stick to your guns, meaning you need to reduce consumer exposure to harmful chemicals. You need to limit air pollution by phasing out much more quickly the most polluting cars. You have to reduce the impact of food on health and on the environment. And above all, you need to change the price signals. For the moment, the sustainable option is not affordable for the people because the wrong price signals are being given, because the externalities like the cost of air pollution on your health is not paid by the polluter. And so this type of still missing elements of the strategy would be something that we would certainly very much welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for it. So that there is, you were very much saying that's from the EU side, that's from really the policy perspective. Please maintain that ambition throughout so that when it comes to implementation, we keep those high levels. You are echoing there in terms of ambition what Jeremy has said right at the outset. Right, so I think we are hearing that. Let me come to the European Council of Young Farmers. I'd love to hear from you, Samuel, because that's going to be a very different perspective. You are very much on the front line, farmers. So you are, hit by the impacts of climate change and pollution, and you are also there to protect rural areas and the landscape and put food on the table. It's a hell of a lot. So when you look at the details of this action plan, what do you think?
Yes, thank you, Katrina. Thank you very much for the invitation today. I think it's very important to sometimes have the voice and gather with other amazing people in such a panel to have the possibility to express ourselves. And I'm very glad that we have this opportunity today. So thank you again for that. let me go back to what you just said and mentioned. You know, as a farmer, as a grape grower, organic grape grower from the south of France, we are facing every day the reality of climate change. And I think we are in the front line of the intensification of the violence sometimes of the climate changing. And so I think we cannot, as farmers, avoid the reality and take action. I mean, that's one of the claims that we might have. And even more as the new generation, I might say, as farmers. And that's something that I would like to point out because, you know, I'm representing young farmers and I'm under 35 years old. And the big reality in the EU, but you can say that worldwide, is that we only represent 6% of the entire sectors as farmers of the reality of the population of farmers today. Young farmers under 35 years old, we only have 6% of the population. So this also will be the big goal of tomorrow. And I'm very glad that is in the front line right now through the Green Deal and if we link now to the CAP and stuff like that. This is really important when we want to take action to involve all population. And I'm very glad what Monique mentioned just before. I think now we have to take action, and I'm glad that after we will speak about the platform, because I think we have to be all connected when we want to speak about this subject, because we can have good practices sometimes, and they could be linked to differentiation of the approach that we can have. So I think it's very important, and I'm glad also that you know, we involve consumer in the whole process, because it's very important. You know, 66.7% of the consumer are not ready to pay more for their products. So how do we do for that? And that's a very big and key issue for us, how we can manage for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to come back, not yet, because I wanted to let everybody to lay out their stall, but I was going to come back to Monique on that, because the discussions I have, and of course when you talk on industry side, when they say, well, look, we need a level playing field, there's a lot of costs, and how the consumer understands that, and is perhaps, are they prepared to pay for that transition? But let's just hold that a moment, if I may, Monique. I will come back to you. You all know, because I've terrorised you, that we have not so very much time. So let me come, please, to Business Europe, if I may, to its Deputy Director General, Alexandre Affre. And the first thing is that very simple question. The Zero Pollution Action Plan, how can it benefit? How can it help achieve the objectives of the European Green Deal? Probably you agree with some of what you've heard from your colleagues there on the panel. What do you say, and what do you say differently?
Thank you, and good afternoon. I think the action plan very much gives the direction of travel. What comes next for me is the question of how you make this ambition reached, and at the same time you keep industry and companies competitive in a world where you have stronger and stronger competition. And why do we have to make sure companies are competitive? Is because then they have the ability to invest in their own transformation, processes, people, skills, but also they can invest developing new products, new technologies and solutions for society at large. So this is for me very key. And that brings me to my second point. I mentioned investments in new technology. So I think the action plan can help if it really helps pushing innovation. And we know when we talk about pollution, a lot of technologies already exist, so needs to be deployed. But there are as well a lot of technologies that are still very early phases, still prototypes, or actually maybe still need to be invented. And this is where Europe, with the action plan, needs to be really an enabler of bringing more innovation into Europe. And this is about investments, public-private. This is also about the way regulation are designed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And I think obviously this cost issue is something that we might just revisit just momentarily. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let you know we have no more than 18 more minutes, so just keep that in mind, if I may ask you. Now, I would like to come to Bent now, if I may. Let me remind everybody he's the President of Housing Europe, and say to you, what do you feel enthusiastic about in this action plan? What do you perhaps want to see more of? Let's just remind us that we're talking about how it helps achieve the objectives of the European Green Deal, not just on pollution, but in general, climate, biodiversity, resources. What's your feelings, Bent?
Well, thank you for inviting us here today. When we look at the zero pollution objective, what we are looking at is, of course, cities, because most people live in cities and most of the housing sector is in the cities. And we are looking at what we can call next generation of the neighborhoods. And when we look at the neighborhoods, it's a kind of a micro-society. And we have to mobilize the local resources in an intelligent way. Everybody wants zero pollution, everybody wants the greening, and we want a sustainable city, and a sustainable city is also a socially sustainable city. So when we look at the different dimensions, we cannot only have focus on one point here. As it also was said earlier on, it's a multidisciplinary thing to have zero pollution. And when we look at the objectives, it's very important for us that different sectors have different ways to reach these objectives, and we do not have to prescribe the particular path to reach these objectives. So it's very important to have success here, that the different sectors, it's a kind of a co-creation process here, and it's a kind of co-creation process where we have to follow different paths to get the objective which we are all agree on.
Thank you, and absolutely, and I don't think any good discussion cannot have the word co-creation. I think it is absolutely critically important, and also what you say there, to not be too prescriptive. Now, what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, and I will come to you again because you have been very patient there, Jeremy, waiting in the studio with me, is I know there's a lot to talk about on the action plan itself, and we could be here for so many hours, and so we should, but what I am going to do is focus the attention on the platform. We're going to look at what we can bring to the platform. I would like to talk about it. I'm not wishing to just be happy clappy, but kind of in a celebratory way. What can we bring to that? So I'm going to come to you, Jeremy, and say, what would you bring to it, and who would be a stakeholder or another actor that you would best think, Kat, that's the person that I want there, and that's the person that isn't there, and I might like to see more of.
Right. Yeah, no, thank you. It's a good question. I think what we'd like to bring to the platform, first of all, some quite strong ideas around the issue of economic instruments and the polluter pays, right. how to apply the polluter pays instrument, because right now the polluter is not paying, and that means other people, future generations, other distant countries are paying for pollution. So this is one issue we'd like to bring. Definitely. I mean, in terms of the actors, and maybe a second issue I can squeeze that in, transparency. Information about pollution is absolutely key, and we'd like to see all the different databases brought together in kind of user-friendly, integrated pollution database.
Is there any particular best practice you could say that's a good one,
I think
Kat?
there are a lot of good practices out there, but we need to take another step. For example, I'd like to talk to Monique about this, product passports, so that consumers can make informed environmental choices just through using a QR code. They can see all the environmental qualities
the traceability,
of a particular product.
Yeah.
This kind of thing, that it would bring together the digital agenda, the consumer agenda, the environmental agenda in a very nice way. And I mean, already work's being done on this. I mean, you asked me to choose who I'd love to strike up a conversation.
Or somebody who's not on there.
I'd love to talk to Alexandra about how to make European industry competitive. I mean, of course, there's a lot of scaremongering around this, but there's a real issue as well. But the key thing is that European industry is going for a race to the top, not a race to the bottom. And the tools to deal with that, strong global regulatory frameworks, strong EU border control measures, robust trade policies. I'd love to talk to Samuel about farming policies, and as a young farmer, I hope he recognises that the way the CAP negotiations are going, the farming community is effectively cutting off the branch that it's sitting on, because basically farming depends on the environment. It doesn't just impact on the environment, it depends on a healthy environment, and we absolutely need strong measures. And I mean, I said I wouldn't criticise you said we shouldn't
No,
the
you
thing, but
you
I'd like to
may.
just
I just said let's also say the positive. You may.
One thing, you know, when it talks about, you know, cutting ammonia emissions, it talks about techno fixes and so on. But actually, you know, one of the big issues that we have to address is meat consumption. And one of the clearest measures to reduce our impact
and
the
pollution
impact of farming is by reducing meat consumption probably to about half, to stay with more sustainable levels. So there's a few issues we'd want to bring to this kind of platform, and clearly some conversations that we could have, because we don't see the farming community as one amorphous sort of blob. I mean, there are different voices within that community, and we want to relate and work together with the more progressive voices in that community.
So what I hear from you, and don't get me wrong, you are absolutely welcome, because the whole point is that the Commission is shaping this platform. So if you have things to say, I'm not wanting you all to sit here sparkling. I would just love to know what you can bring and who you want to have conversations with. You've been absolutely clear. We need that great shared database, and doubtless you would be a fabulous person, and I mean that genuinely, to orchestrate some of these exchanges on this platform. There are very critical answers, conversations that need to be had to get into the detail. Let me ask the same question, because we literally have but 12 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Who would like to come next? Monique, can I ask the same to you? You know, what will you bring to the table, or rather to the platform, and who would you like to have that conversation with?
Yes, thank you. Well, we would bring our role as watchdog on the ground at the table or at the platform. And so meaning that we can certainly share with the other members of the platforms the best practices that our members have identified in the different member states, in the different countries, but also certainly also maybe the worst practices, if I can say, because what is very important is to take account of the effect of policies on consumers. And sometimes some policies have been a waste of funding because they did not lead to change of consumer behavior. And so you really need to, as Samuel also mentioned, you need to tailor in the consumer behavior, and the meat production and meat consumption is a major element. You need to have people changing their meat consumption patterns, and that's a headache, but you need to have them on board. And so what would I like to have from this platform? It should not be a talk shop. There should be a clear mandate, clear deliverables, KPIs. I don't want this to be an excuse for not taking any more regulatory action. I want this to be like an inspiring forum where people can exchange ideas and get forward, but not as a defensive rear guard tool in order not to take more ambitious actions where needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. And that made me think, and not just hot air. We had a brilliant cartoon from our Latvian cartoonist right at the outset, and in which he articulated it so well. I think it's so important for you to keep hammering home this issue of the consumer. Absolutely, because when we talk about the policy sometimes, and it is very high level, and there's so many different areas to unpack, and it's people, planet, biodiversity, but how it all fits together. Let me, just before I come off you, but it's got to be quick, Monique, did you say, in terms of that cost issue with the consumer, do you think we should expect, I mean, I'm going to be really blunt, those of us who are more able to take a bit of a hit to say, okay, I'll pay more because I want that. I'm okay, I see what we need to do, and therefore we accept that there are others who won't. I mean, there has to be a notion that the consumer has to know this is going to cost to achieve this green transition, shouldn't there?
Let me debunk a few ideas there. We always say that the sustainable option must be the most affordable one. Otherwise, the change will not happen and the whole transition will be a failure. What is very important is that there are solutions. For example, the sustainable option is already, for the moment, in many cases, the less expensive one. We have just published a study about electric cars that are, in fact, in total running costs, they are cheaper than petrol cars or diesel cars. We have chemicals, we have cosmetics that do not have harmful chemicals in them, that are less expensive than those with harmful chemicals. And also very important, stop subsidizing the wrong thing. Stop subsidizing promotion policies of meat, like it's the case now, and use those funding for the more sustainable options. Then you direct the price signal to the more sustainable options. And then also, don't forget that the cost is currently already borne by the people, because if the polluter doesn't pay for air pollution, well, the public health system pays for that. And so if you have a closer cost pollution relationship, first of all, you push towards innovation. That's good for the competitiveness of the industry, but also you push towards a more resilient economy. It's not a cost, it's an investment, and it needs to be framed like that.
Okay, thank you very much. I actually got my timing a bit wrong. We have a little bit more time than I thought. That was just me being super uber efficient there. I'm going to come to Samuel, if I may. And so we heard there this call that this shouldn't just be about talk. It should be about how we shouldn't be too orchestrated. People need to be able to unpack and exchange, but it needs to go somewhere, and we need to keep the energy up. So what would you like from this platform, and what can you bring? And who would you most like to chat with on it?
So obviously this platform could be very important, like I mentioned earlier, because the idea is to gather all the citizens in a way, the representative, the experts, anyone that would want to be involved, even regions, local municipalities, so all the actor of the EU, I would say, in a sense, to try to exchange and find the best way to approach zero pollution in the EU. And I think it's the smartest way to approach it. Now, let me go back to the subject that we spoke earlier. I think there is a big subject here. It's like, I'm from the wine industry, so I know the word moderation. I think it's very important. That will be the key for each kind of thing that we eat. And we are what we eat, is that we say most of the time. So that's not a new thing. And so, yes, I mean, if I go back to the subject about meat, obviously we need coherence also. And that's why I really hope in this platform we can have this kind of exchanges throughout the policymaker, stakeholders, others, but also the citizens, the way that we consume. Because I believe that if we want to reduce meat consumption, why we keep a negotiation with third countries imports of meat. So that's a big thing for me, So that's a lot of things that we have to discuss about, because we have some incoherence in the way that we approach our way of the EU. And I believe that's tomorrow. And, I think my generation, because we have, I will say, high expectation in the way that we produce our foods. And I think it's very important. I mean, we see our children, they are asking for that, and even for all the farmers, their children are asking for higher quality. And I totally agree with Monique, how we can make sure that we keep accessible and affordable foods and in higher quality. Mm-hmm. And this could pass in the way that we approach also subsidies. And that's very, very important to change a little bit the software here. Okay. And I can have a lot of examples, but I know that we don't have the time for that.
No, that's okay. And I know that anyone who would like to continue the conversation or find out more can you. There is always this balance here between doing slightly more than scratch the surface, but not being able to go into depth with every issue that's raised. But thank you. Your clarity and your passion speaks volumes. If I could come to Bent now and say the same thing to you, what can you bring to the table? How can you nourish this platform? What do you want out of it? And if there was a stakeholder or two you'd most like to chat with?
Let's start with what the platform has to be relevant. It's very important. So we have to have an excellent platform and with the newest solutions. So as Monique said, I think we have to change things. It's not just a status quo platform. So we have to have the newest solutions on the platform. And when we look at our sectors in the different European countries, what do? We produce homes affordable homes for those in need. That's the core thing we are doing here. But we also have been, when you look back many, many years also, we have been a kind of a hub for innovation in the construction sector. And we, of course, buy a lot of things from the construction sector. And it has been a cooperation with the construction sector to make the innovation. And what I said when the first word, it was about we do not have this prescription paths. We have to be innovative together. And what could stop this development could maybe be that we take our common solutions and just turn a little bit more on the common solutions and say we have to save more energy, save more energy, save more energy, which is not cost effective. So intelligent solutions, clear goals, but different path. And we also look at the cities. But what we are doing here is also planning the cities. And COVID-19 has been a bad experience, of course, but also an eye-opener. When we look at the homes around in Europe, many of the affordable homes, they are very small. And what people have been forced to do and what they will do further on is that they work at home. So we have to have different perspectives about what is the workplace and what is home. And it's also very important in zero pollution, because the transportation needs will be reduced a lot if we can do that, if we can in fact make this, and we can have more well-driven neighborhoods, because you have different activities in it, and many in these neighborhoods are maybe outside the labor market. And if you bring workplaces into the neighborhoods, there is a shorter distance to participate in the labor market if we can do it in a very wise way. So many solutions can flow together here if we do it right.
Yeah, and before I come, and I haven't forgotten you, I promise, Alexandre, but hang on, just to say many solutions. There, Bent said more solutions. And more, beg your pardon, new solutions, which does, fit together with innovative and so on. Do you think the platform needs to come up just with new solutions? Is it that? Is it something? Where do you sit on that? Being very, very concrete about what a successful platform can look like.
Right. I mean, I think it needs to come with new ideas, innovation. Technological innovation has its place, but I don't think we should only be looking at technical fixes for the problems that we have. I think we need to look at bigger societal changes. We talked about the example of meat eating, but we could look at housing, Bent's topic. We could look at energy. How do we produce and use energy? We could look at transport. So I think in all of these areas, we need to be talking about a systemic change in order to get the reductions in pollution that we need, basically.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to come to Alexandre, and then I'm going to come to a last question for you all. But first of all, I haven't asked you, Alexandre, and it's the same thing. You know, what can you bring? What can you offer this platform? What do you want to get from it? Is there any particular actor that you'd love to have a good conversation and co-create a solution?
I think, firstly, maybe, I mean, a lot of points have been made already by colleagues. Maybe just to pick on one, Jeremy's point, I have no doubts about industry being ready for the race to the top. I think this is very clear. There is no question about what or if. I think where we will certainly discuss very much is about the how we make it happen. But this is not about the what. I think this is an important point, and I'm sure there can be a lot of discussion about these instruments and how you design the instruments, but not about the if. Now, in terms of what I or Business Europe or industry, whoever is engaging, I think it's the reality check on the ground to achieve our environmental objective, but also to check what is on the ground economically, technologically feasible. I think this is what industry brings to the platform. And in terms of additional participants, possibly, I think we're all on the call now are extremely important. I would maybe add research institute. I think it has been mentioned by some of you. I mean, if we talk about research innovation, they can certainly be an important player. And as Business Europe, we are an employee organization. Social dialogue is, of course, very key. So trade unions probably have a role to play there. Well, not probably, for sure have a role to play there.
Thank you very much. And absolutely, and you put the focus there on research. I would say also civil society, that's absolutely critical. If I might come to you to sort of kick off the twilight of this, if I say to you, you know, what's the most important thing for you? I'm coming back to the very specific theme of this year's GreenWeek, zero pollution. And if I might ask you, Jeremy, and all of us, I know working together is the most important d'office, but let's just take that as read. What else is the most important ingredient for you? Really, because it's very specific, zero pollution, and it's very wide. So what would you say?
Right. I mean, I think I would say political will is the main ingredient that's missing. And I mean, the difference between the Juncker Commission and the von der Leyen Commission is political will driven by a green wave. But we need to take that political will to the next stage. And I think the Zero Pollution Action Plan is pointing in the right direction, but it hasn't walked very far in that direction. So the ambition needs to come now to follow up on that, to deliver what's in the plan, but also to go further. And I do think, to take Alexandra's words, I do think we need a reality check, but we need a reality check against the science of what is happening with pollution. And that will tell us that we need to absolutely step up and increase our ambition. And we need politicians who are willing to do that. We need the Council and the Parliament to step in now and support the high-level narrative of the Zero Pollution Action Plan, the objectives, but to push for more concrete actions as well, so that all three institutions are pushing in the right direction.
And coherent. And let me just before I move to my other speakers joining us, very important. You said at the beginning, it sort of sounded quite disgruntled. Come on, these claims by the Commission. You know, we've got the World Health Organization here, and you talked ambition and a bigger framework, and it needs to be a coherent push. So how do you see that the Commission does fit? Because I know they are trying to align the guidelines. We're looking at air pollution. So do you not see that sort of context of a European Green Deal and zero pollution more widely, taking that into account, also the SDGs?
Well, I think the point is that the SDGs, the European Green Deal, the Zero Pollution Action, they all have a lot of very nice language in. And I'm not underestimating the importance of that. It's really important to get that narrative right. But to actually make the difference on the ground so that, measured against science, we're really making progress on tackling these problems, you really need to get into the specifics of concrete instruments, concrete targets. I don't think there was a single new target in the Zero Pollution Action Plan that wasn't already in another instrument. Okay. We need those targets, we need those concrete measures. So, you know, and I hope this stakeholder platform can feed into that and encourage more ambition from the
But I think you all seem, as the very diverse actors you are and the ones that we have with us, you all seem to be singing from the same song sheet and that perspective. Ambition, please, more ambition. We need it. Ambition and implementation. Okay, so for each of you, you've got no more than just under a minute each. If I might ask you, most important thing to really achieve or to get towards zero pollution. Let us take it as read, all actors working together. That's also the purpose of the platform, to create a mechanism. Who can start? Samuel, what would you say? You've very diligently muted yourself. No, there we go.
Exactly.
You know the drill. Yeah.
No, I was just saying, like, reality check for me will be the most important thing, and science-based also, I think. But if I've been already said, and I can say also trust and transparency, because this will be also a big key to achieve the idea that we are putting on the ambition through this platform, but also zero pollution. So yeah, I think we are committed to go this way if we add all these points.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I come to Bent, if I may? So I won't leave you to last this time. Go for it.
Thank you. Much of the same, on the same page. We have to confront it with reality. A lot of fine words, and the fine words can maybe create some specific goals planned politically. But when you have to have these goals on the ground, maybe you are shooting the wrong way, and we cannot implement it at the local way. When we have this, also talk about Bauhaus, it has to be beautiful, sustainable, and inclusive, and we can all agree on that. But we have to have it much more concrete, because when we implement, it could be city planning, and it can be insulation and things like that. We have these are homes for people. And it has to be affordable homes. So when you can make this meet the reality on the right level, then we can reach the goals. And the biggest danger here is that we have this kind of distraction between what we are saying and what is the fine words and what is the reality.
I don't think anyone would ever disagree that that marriage between the big picture vision, the policy vision, the ambition, it's brilliant, it's needed, but it comes to naught if it's not implemented. I personally on the platform, yeah, indeed. I hear you. Well, in general, and absolutely, you were talking, and thank you, about the platform. But what I would say is that I hope, from what we heard from the conversation between the Commission and the Committee of the Regions. They are actually the leader, not the Commission. So I'm very much hoping that those issues that you raised there, Ben, about the localization, you know, making it meaningful for the people that are living it in cities and in regions, I hope that that can be a driver for perhaps assuaging some of your concerns there. We have two last, we have Alexandre and we have Monique. So you've got a minute each, if I might ask. The most important thing, just picking up this theme of zero pollution. Alexandre, beg your pardon. I didn't give a signal. It was you first.
Thank you. No, I think you, and I hope this is okay for you, Monique. Okay, but I think you have understood. For me, this is very much about innovation, which is not just about technological innovation. I agree. Social innovation, the way we consume, also as individuals. So this is much broader than technological innovation. But technological innovation have a key role to play here. So for me, this is about reaching that ambition while we keep business in Europe innovative and competitive.
Thank you very much. Yes, I absolutely got that message about innovation. I think it's shared by, well, certainly by Monique, who I'm going to come now. You have the last minute, Monique, to wrap up.
Private message to Alexandre. I love having the last word. So this is what I would like to say, political ambition, yes, but also courage, political courage, because there will be some tough decisions that need to be taken. And that means that we need politicians with a vision and with a long-term investment. Apart from that, I would like to say, make it people-centric. It's the people who will have to change the way they eat, the way they move, the way they buy or not things, the way they travel, the way they rent rather than buying the long-lasting products. And that means that you need to make the sustainable option the easy one. You need to make it available, you need to make it attractive, and you need to make it affordable. And that means far beyond the whole conundrum of consumer information tools, you need to make the products just more sustainable.
Yeah. And I hope that the Sustainable Products Initiative and everything that's coming up will be one big and important step towards that. Also the revision there of the eco-design directive and really bringing the circular economy that was just a buzzword a few years ago. I feel that it is something bigger. Do you feel, Jeremy, last word to you before I close? Do you feel it's getting out there, that it's more understood? I mean, behind the phrase circular economy, there's a whole bunch of different instruments which are making a difference. But of course, they need to go further. Eco-design, you mentioned, this is going much too slowly. There are green public procurement. There are many different instruments, labeling, and so on, where a lot more could be done. So yeah, it's going slowly in the right direction, but speed is important, because it is a race against time when we're talking about not only biodiversity loss, not only climate change, but also pollution. So that's why we need to inject more ambition into the process to pick up the pace. Yeah, and you said right at the start, you said, Katrina, I think you said that doesn't mean complacency. That was at the start. So I think you've come full circle there to reiterate, and also to reiterate what Monique said there. It is also not just about political will, but it's also about courage and speed. And I don't think anyone can disagree. I think we will all sit here, but it's actually doing it, right? And marrying everything up and all the complexities thereof, including the cost that we spoke of. So I have very clearly heard all of your messages, and I so appreciate you being so concise. We have a lot of people from the Commission in this fabulous studio here who I genuinely think have been in listening mode. This is a platform to come. We heard that from Florica. So your views are genuinely much appreciated. You are all experts, and it's always a privilege to sit with you. Thank you so much, Jeremy. If I can ask you to stay, that's kind of within, it's just 15 minutes more. Sure. It's what we're allowed with COVID restrictions in the studio. Plus, I just love to have you there. It would be delightful. So to all of you who have joined us remotely, thank you so much. To Samuel, to Monique, to Alexandre, to Bent. You've all been stupendous. Hope to meet you at some point and have further chats face to face. If you want to, stay tuned. We haven't got that much longer for this closing session. Bye-bye. Thank you. So, to our audience, as I said, we really are coming to those very, very twilight moments of this closing session of the 2021 edition of GreenWeek. Now, it couldn't close without a word from our Commissioner, Commissioner Sinkevicius, who was with me in the studio to open just a few days ago. Seems eons ago now, and also, of course, the architect of the European Green Deal, Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans. Now, they couldn't be here live, but I did get the chance to catch up with them earlier this week, and I did ask them again about the Zero Pollution Action Plan, their views on it, but also importantly, what messages that they would have for you at home if they were with us in the studio today. So let's have a listen. It's so lovely to have you with me. Thank you very, very much to close GreenWeek. Let me turn to you first, please, Frans Timmermans, and ask you, the zero pollution ambition, it really is a key component of the European Green Deal. So how do you see it as that driver of the green transition?
Well, if we have the ambition to be the first climate neutral continent in 2050, that's not just about emissions. It's about learning to live within planetary boundaries. And one of the elements to learn to live within planetary boundaries is to make sure we don't pollute anymore, because otherwise the planet cannot sustain up to 10 billion people. That's why the zero pollution ambition is crucial if we want to reach our goal of being the first climate neutral continent by 2050.
Thank you. So, Commissioner, those words must resonate with you. How do you see particularly, the zero pollution ambition fitting in?
So what I like the most about the Green Deal itself, that first of all, it's horizontal initiative, touches upon every aspect of our lives, every basically portfolio in the Commission. And zero pollution is perfectly fitting that profile because, unfortunately, but it's still everywhere. And we need to do utmost to push it down so it does not harm our environment, our citizens' health. And I think with this plan, we had the first sort of step with the chemical strategy, where we very clearly went to decrease of pollution from chemicals. And now, of course, we take other areas such as air, soil, and etc., which I think is very important for our citizens to be addressed. And it's sort of the final piece in among our initiatives in the European Green Deal context.
Thank you, and thank you for I think it's very important to show people how it all fits together. So thank you for that. A second question, we're going to look in a little bit more detail at the Zero Pollution Action Plan. Now, all of those stakeholders, they have high expectations, they have diverse expectations. So how do you intend to respond to those?
Well, I think our plastic strategy, for instance, has shown how successful we can be in a very short period of time. Single-use plastics, we're taking them out of the equation. We're replacing them with products that don't pollute. And it has a huge support in our population. And I think all stakeholders should understand that our citizens want us to move towards a zero-pollution society. That means circular economy. It means recycling where we can. It means reusing where we can. It's just rethinking the way we live.
Rethinking the way we live. It's big, it's absolutely indispensable. So how do you intend to respond to all those diverse and high stakeholder expectations?
I think what we have stressed also during this week, but in our communication, that of course to be successful in 2030, in 2050 with our goals, it requires massive, massive, massive collective action. And therefore, we cannot expect to implement the Green Deal successfully without those grassroots initiatives, which EVP mentioned as well. When I, for example, go to Finland, Lahti, our green capital, all those initiatives, they first of all coming from people. Yeah. And of course, we have to answer their call. Therefore, we organized multiple stakeholders consultations, including not only EU level or national government, but also regional and cities, because these are the people who are the forefront of implementing those initiatives.
Thank you so much again for just putting the focus there on people, on all of those brilliant things happening on the ground, and the necessity that people understand exactly what the Commission wants to achieve, what Europe wants to achieve. So I've got 4 questions. This is the third one coming. GreenWeek really has been the first opportunity to talk, the Zero Pollution Action Plan in a bit more detail. You've been listening in. So what 1 or 2 key highlights from the week do you take away?
Well, the one thing I've learned this week is that this is no longer a niche for these do-gooder green people. This is becoming so broad in our society. It's a necessity for everyone. So the Green Week has proven this is now no longer something for specialists, something for environmentalists. It's for everyone. And I think that's the main lesson I draw from what we've seen.
Thank you. So yes, it's broadening. There we heard from the Executive Vice President, it's broadening, it's going beyond that niche. It's not... Tell me about what your main takeaways are.
Probably I can only build up on that, what the Vice President said, that I was really touched by the involvement of people. And they come from different backgrounds. I mean, we have very young people involved who had a magnificent ideas. We had, of course, sectors involved who were going to be affected, who need to undergo certain change. But most important, that we see clear willingness from everyone to act. Everyone understands that the current situation is unacceptable. And I think this is the most important takeaway for us as politicians, because in the end of the day, society gives us a certain mandate to act. And with such mandate, of course, we can act much more freely.
Thank you very much. So I've come to the shortest one now, and that is, of course, you've had lots and lots of loyal participants throughout the week. If you have to deliver that one last key message for the close of Green Week, what would that key message be?
You're winning the argument. You're winning the argument. We've had so many years of difficult struggle, of people not coming on board. Now you've won the argument, and you're winning the argument across the board. So keep it going, because we're getting where we need to be.
And to you, Commissioner, what would that last key message be?
I'll be very short, saying that this week gives us a great boost. And I think that with that, we can make pollution a thing of the past.
And if you had to do a sort of a longer, because we obviously shared the opening together, and that was great. We were together in the studio. So all of those high hopes and all of that high enthusiasm, what would be some closing words? And I will ask you to turn directly to the camera, to the lovely participants at home. What would you say to them as we close?
Thank you very much. So we have come to the end of the European Green Week 2021. Of course, it's very reassuring to see so many people interested in zero pollution and so determined to work towards delivering healthier people and planet. But you can't solve everything in a week. Our task is now to use this energy and these best intentions and turn into a lasting engagement to the benefit of clean and healthy planet for all. The Zero Pollution Stakeholder Platform is aiming to do exactly that. And thank you all for your interest throughout this week. I also want to thank the people who organized more than 600 partner events, the young artists who answered the call for work on the theme of My World Without Pollution, the exhibitors who put together the virtual exhibition, and our associated and media partners. It's been a huge collective effort, and thanks to all for making it a success. My grateful thanks to all the speakers, moderators, session organizers, and backstage colleagues, including the team from DG Environment who orchestrate the week and help it to run so smoothly. Heartfelt thanks to you all. Take care, stay safe, and keep driving the green transition towards our zero pollution future.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Sinkevičius, for your passionate and rousing finale there. Much appreciated. Thank you so much to you also, Executive Vice President Timmermans. It's been an absolute pleasure to have both of you with me to close Green Week together.
Thank you.
So that was a great opportunity to be able to catch them partway through the week there, to give their thoughts on what they had seen and heard, and to also give some takeaways to all of you at home. Now, I have back with me the Director General, Florica. I've just demoted you live on camera. The Director General of DG Environment with me, and you, I think you've got some good news in your closing words, have you not? It's a little bit about looking ahead to holidays.
Yes, it is. But let me first also add to the message of thanks once again. You cannot do it often enough, and also to you, Katrina, in particular, because ultimately this is always a collective success. So we are very grateful for everybody. And it was a hybrid, or rather hybrid and virtual event, second time already. But we hope that next year, indeed, as you said, people can perhaps travel, and then we can network in the bit old way again. But traveling, indeed, I listened to the other session and the word sustainability came up, and that also goes for traveling. Sustainability, but it must be affordable and attractive. And now I do have good news for you, indeed, because we had this week the European Agency for the Environment issuing the annual report on the quality of bathing water in Europe. And the good news is it remains extremely high. So we were already high, but it stays high, and this is not unimportant. But now I will quote a little bit, because it means that 83% of bathing sites in the EU are of excellent, and excellent means zero pollution quality. And even if you were to look at the minimum water quality standards, it is safe to bath in 93% of all the sites in Europe. So stay in Europe, I'm sorry to say, and enjoy some traveling and some holidays. Holidays means swimming, but I have an even better news. And for me, that was flabbergasting. Honestly, it was flabbergasting, because we can now swim, making it affordable and attractive. You can swim in some of our cities again. And that means lakes, rivers around big cities or in big cities are being restored to high quality standard, and that's amazing. And I will tell you where. It's not exhaustive, but some I will tell, because my hometown is among them, so I can't help not saying it. So you can bath on the banks of the river Danube, be it in Vienna or the beautiful, beautiful Budapest. But now it comes, River Spree in Germany, in Berlin, you can do. Unbelievable when I was a teenager there. And also numerous places in Amsterdam and also in Riga. And the most amazing part I found, you can even make a swim and a splash in the harbor of Copenhagen. I found that amazing. So pollution and zero pollution is achievable if we work on it. And I think that's a message which we can take from this whole session. But I think it's also a very positive, forward-looking one. And I think I'm very glad to end with this good news, but also a news that says it is achievable. It's not utopian, it is achievable. So
thank you. Thank you. I love it, and I personally love the fact that you use that brilliant word flabbergasted at the end, because it's true, it is flabbergasting. It's a brilliant word to use. Jeremy, you looked happy, cautious, I'm sure. Cautious. Yeah, no, I'm sure you're going to exercise caution.
Don't make me the bad news guy and Florica the good news.
Don't be the bad news guy.
I'm also happy to celebrate this, but we can't rest until you can bathe in all the cities in Europe and all the rivers in Europe.
You are
That's
so
what
right.
Zero pollution means.
Of course,
you're so that goal. But this is great. A great.
We are on the path towards. We are on the path, and that's important. But it is encouraging for colleagues to say it is worth embarking, because they see already successes, and I think that's extremely important that people start believing in it. And that's, I think that's a message we are not apart at all. We are very united often.
Thank you very much. Thank you to both of you. Now, that's not just the only high note to end on. I did promise, and I didn't manage to get that in the opening, but we do have some tweets that came in from the week, and I think perhaps we could just put a couple up there now, because I've got dreadful eyes and can't squint. We've got obviously that brilliant cartoonist Gattis, who drew that live, that challenge, to depict the urgency to act. So I think probably that is one that Jeremy will like, which he drew live, which you can't see, but look, I should show you. There, if you look there, look, can't really see it. I will personally give it to you dusted for no germs afterwards. So that is Gattis there. Really impressed with EU GreenWeek, says Caroline Aliwell. After 1 year plus of digital events, crumbs, it's a refreshing setup. And the session on the special programme was very, very well chaired. Oh, I love that. Aminda Lee, she's my fellow moderator. She's delightful. And the use of Slido, and it kept it all really engaging. We've got Kieran Watkins. On a side note, the platform used for this GreenWeek conference is very impressive. I love the interface, love the access to partners and exhibitors. So well done to DG Environment and to all the organisers. And you had 2 little emojis there with claps. Very important. Finally had time to participate in the EU GreenWeek sessions, says Kalle Paraviainen. Really inspiring thoughts and presentations on sustainable buildings. We had Carla Montesi, really important to emphasise the action on plastics pollution. and it can serve other objectives, more decent job opportunities linked to the circular economy transition, to tackle the environment crisis and improve people's health. So that was, and Sonia Stoyanova, pollution contributes to biodiversity loss. It affects our health. So the Zero Pollution Action Plan needs to deliver an inclusive green transition that decouples economic growth from pollution, making the EU a leader in environmental protection. So there we go. I think some nice tweets there, and I think, Florica, you said that there was an awful lot of exchange and action and activity on social media and in terms of connecting. So I think the Commission has really done a good job in trying to get all of that exchange together and that excitement and that buzz as well. So let me please thank the Director General, Florica Fink-Hoyer, for being with me. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for being the lone person who was the speaker on that panel. Let me please thank the Commission as a whole, not least DG Environment, also DG Research and Innovation were involved, for hosting and organising, and I choose these words wisely, a beast of an event. It has been really quite epic. Perhaps you can't see all of that when you're at home behind the screen, but there have been a tremendous amount of very talented and committed people beavering away behind the scenes to bring you such rich and relevant and diverse content. So thank you. Huge thanks to our brilliant speakers. There's absolutely no Green Week without you, and we always have to kind of whip you into shape and say, sorry, you've got 1 minute instead of 5, but you've been fantastic. Thank you to my army of fellow moderators. We heard Aminda Lee there, but there were a whole plethora, both virtually and here in this studio, who've done an utterly splendid job. Thank you to our brain wizardy interpreters. I don't know how they do it, but they do. And to our wonderfully talented and hard-working technicians. I just want to park it there for a moment. The Director General herself did say, you know, when you come to this set here, you realise, but to run all of this in parallel with interpretation, like clockwork, like one big TV show for 4 days, it's huge. So big thanks to all the fabulous technicians, a Herculean task, and a little nod there from me personally to Anne Cresswell from the agency Teamwork, and to Remy from ManyThink, who have been personally hugely supportive to me for the stuff I've done here. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for turning up, for tuning in, for asking intelligent questions. My one wish is that you take away knowledge, partnerships, new ideas, golden nuggets, enthusiasm. Please use it to nourish your work. Who knows, we might see each other face to face next time. But I'm going to leave you now with probably the words from the youngest ever participant in Green Week, this year's edition, a message for the future, or the now, actually.
Dear adults, have you ever done something to prevent any kind of pollution? No? Then start now.